So I have some little thumbnail sketches and some notes that I took. I have another painting that has some hummingbirds that I'm referencing. And now I'm going to do a larger sketch. So I just have a piece of sketchbook paper and I am just playing with how I'm going to draw things, what their proportions are going to be, what the heck this flower is going to look like that I kind of have made up, but it's kind of referencing other things that I've seen in real life. And I think it's a really good idea to sketch and take notes and think about color palette before beginning on the final. And so I just bop around with some different kinds of pencils. This one's darker so I can see it clearer. And I'm just playing with ideas, and now I'm ready to move forward. So I have a round piece of watercolor paper, and I've just found the diameter with a ruler. And I've decided to do the balance idea, the equinox of having half of my composition dark and half of my composition light. And that is really a fun challenge to try to get everything to balance. So now I'm drawing out the hummingbird and the flower on my final piece with a light pencil. And then I had originally thought that I was going to have 3 hummingbirds, but then as I was doing my sketching, the creative flow took me and told me that it wanted to have some serpents as leaves here for this flower. And so even though it wasn't my plan, I listened. I let go to the structure and I allowed the flow to take me. And so allow that to happen. Nobody ever has to see this. Allow it to happen. So now I have a bunch of brushes available, a watercolor set over here on the left, and then the Caran d'Ache water-soluble crayons up there on the right. And I have a round brush, it's sable hair, and I'm coming in with some orange watercolor and beginning my painting. And so I end up doing a lot of layering, a lot of painting in this piece. And so I've kept it all loose and fun and really enjoyable. So sometimes I get a little bit too illustrative and serious and I want everything to look perfect. But I encourage myself and you to really just let the material allow you to be expressive. So in this set of petals, I used the Caran d'Ache, and then now I'm adding the water to it to allow it to start blending like a watercolor would act. And now I'm coming in with a darker value, and this is going to just really allow the definition and the dimension of the flower to begin to form, and just using some different color pinks. Sometimes I'm just using water on the brush to blend out areas. So just allow yourself to play, depending on how familiar you are with the materials is going to depend on how confident you feel. Just meet yourself where you are and allow yourself to just be the skill level you are and allow yourself to just come into the flow as best you can. And so the purpose of this whole experience is to just allow yourself to feel that beautiful creative flow. And it really doesn't matter if the artwork isn't super successful. Just allow yourself to enjoy the process. Taking into consideration that the left side in the background is going to be dark and the right side in the background is going to be light is influencing the values and the colors that I'm choosing for each side of this composition. So now I have some Golden Brand gold green fluid acrylic, and I've decided that I'm going to use this bright light green, sort of a yellowish green, for the whole background on the right side. So now I'm just using the filbert brush with just water to saturate the paper so that when I put on the pigment, it allows for a flow state to occur in the actual material, encouraging me to allow for that flow state to occur as I work. And that's one reason I really like watercolor and fluid acrylics. So I'm finding that balance once more, taking that color and over to the left side with the leaf, and bringing in a little bit darker green colors here and there, allowing them to interact with the wet background that I just created. And then on the left, I've gone for a bold choice. I have a dark, bright blue Caran d'Ache, the water-soluble crayon, and I'm just going around all of the subject matter and then filling in with sort of like hatching and cross-hatching, because I know that I'm going to use water to blend it all together. So now I'm ready with the filbert brush, also sable hair, with just water, and I'm coming around to the Caran d'Ache, and it did surprise me with being a lot brighter than I thought it was going to be. And so, we can always do tests on another piece of paper before we begin on the final. If we're not sure about how something is going to look, you can always do like color palette tests if you wish. But of course, I'm just like, okay, I've committed to this color. I'm going to make it work. So here we have almost everything covered in the watercolor. And I'm just bringing in some other blues and greens here from the watercolor palette and allowing everything to blend in a little bit more and become even darker. And you can use a paper towel to blot. And then we need to find some balance with this leaf on the right. And I like to use the same color that I'm using in one area and kind of bop it around and see, what other areas of the composition need that color while I have it on the brush. And of course, you can go back if you missed a spot or you want to add that same color. But my personal painting style is like, okay, it's on the brush, it's going everywhere it's going to go, and then move forward with a new color. So just adding some lines here. I've let that right side dry a little bit so it's not merging with the other colors as I begin to add these abundance leaves to frame the piece and give just a lot more springtime energy to the composition. I just love how abundant this planet is, and in the spring, just how much growth and beauty and energy we get to witness. So now I'm ready to bring in the acrylic, and I need to bring in acrylic because the left side's dark and I want to do that same leaf abundance painting on the left. And so I've got a really, really pale green. I have that golden green, and then I have a darker green, and I've mixed those together to mimic but not have exact that color for the background on the other side. And so it just allows for balance to occur in the composition, even though there's different things happening on each side. And when you paint light on top of dark, it's called scumbling. And oftentimes you have to do several layers in order to create the level of opacity that you wish to have. And then while that color is there, I'm bopping around the flower, and I've decided to lighten up some of these leaves on the left side and then bring in some highlights in other areas of the painting. And then I have white on the palette with a liner brush, and I'm bopping around and bringing more highlights into the piece. And now I'm coming back with a watercolor and bringing in some shadows behind some of the leaves and darkening the beak of the hummingbird, and overall just giving a shadow to all of the subject matter in the piece. So now I've decided that that left side is too blue and too saturated, and I'm going over it with a wash of gray watercolor that I mixed with a little bit of blue-green. And that lightens up as it dries. And then I've got that gray color coming in the flower. And now I have pink acrylic. It's the craft paint. And I am just sort of coming in with some of the areas that need a little bit more definition, that are kind of watery, and just bringing that pink in. And now I have the Caran d'Ache back, and I'm using a couple colors of green to once again sort of make that background on the left less blue and less saturated. So it just feels more in line with the overall composition and the feel that I'd like. Coming in with the pink Caran d'Ache, bopping around, getting some highlights and just some areas of expression and expressive mark making with those. Bringing in a highlight with the white Caran d'Ache here and there. And also that right side, I'm just sort of lightening up and desaturating with the Caran d'Ache here as well. Almost done. Okay, I've got a gold Posca paint pen, which is best used if it's drawn on top of dry areas. If you try to put it in a wet glob of paint, it's going to ruin the marker. So I'm going around just everywhere. I've decided to add a little motif on the bodies of the serpents, and just it's the icing on top. Just final little details and touches to really allow the piece to sing. And the nice thing about metallics is that when you move around the piece in person, it begins to shimmer and shine. There's my DF for Divine Femme. And here is the piece. I hope you enjoy this lesson. I hope you enjoy the spring.